Okay. Did you seriously just take a picture of that?
You got it from the API. I'm going to get the back inside.
All right, now we got sound on that one. So for those of you historically watching the recording, I accidentally hit the mute button on the microphone, and we did introductions, and we'll just move on from that. So glad to have new faces here, and thanks everybody for coming. Rocky retrospective. What went well? Anybody have thoughts they want to share?
It got released.
That is good. From my perspective, we got we had a decent list of things that we had in our priorities tracking. There were probably 8-10 items in there, and I think we got just about all of them in. Did people use the priority tracking Etherpad?
I did.
Okay, good. I used it, obviously, and kind of used that to try to drive our discussions during the meetings. Did people find it helpful for me to ping on that and try to kind of organize that work?
Yeah, I think it's useful to have some push toward the higher priority objectives and keep them in people's minds.
Did anybody use the tags on the bugs as far as the milestone in the reviews that it was targeted to?
I don't remember seeing those ever used.
Yeah, I never did.
Okay.
You mean thanks for the milestone?
Yeah,
Bugs
where
that-
like I was for, especially initially in the release, when I started seeing patches come up that were associated with a goal, I would tag it with, Rocky-1, Rocky-2, what have you. We talked about that at the PTG in Dublin as a way to kind of help people focus their reviews. But I kind of wondered if anybody was actually using it because it didn't seem like anybody commented on it.
Yeah, I didn't use it.
I think
Okay.
I forgot it was a thing.
Yeah,
I remember talking about it, but then I didn't ever
I actually lost a
notice it
milestone
anymore. So
in one of the patches because I just
Okay.
forgot adding something.
Would you like me to try doing that again and reminding people it's there, or does it not seem useful?
Yeah, I think maybe is a future we have to try to develop it with
Okay.
in that direction.
Okay.
I've always been more inclined toward the old method of doing it in a bug tracker
Okay.
instead of in Garrett, but no real strong feelings on it.
Okay. Well, and we've got some storyboard discussion coming up later that will kind of touch on options there too. But I won't go into that now because that could derail this.
Yeah.
Any other positive thoughts for the release? What didn't go well?
Volume of reviews.
Volume of reviews. Yeah, I kind of feel like that we had the discussion in Dublin about reviews and how to make it, hopefully a little more interactive. And I feel like it got worse, not better. And I will be perfectly honest that mistakes got through because it was only Sean and I looking at some of the bugs. And I am by no means a master at reading logic and catching those little fine bugs. Um, I want to discuss that more in a later topic. But I'm hoping people can maybe keep in mind what we might be able to do to improve this in the future. And I know everybody's priorities change and we've all got other jobs and stuff like that. But what else didn't go well? Security, handling of security bugs. One in particular.
Some of the usual complaints about third-party CI are
Oh,
still
yeah.
applicable, I think.
What's that?
What bug was that security bug?
Well, we had a security bug that
I'll let
Well, we had a
Eric, take
security
that
bug
one.
that basically took multiple bugs and over a year to fix in a driver. And basically like every part of the whole thing just went badly. The process went wrong about 6 different places. It was kind of a mess. And there's still some follow-up to figure out there with our relationship with the OpenStack security team too.
Yeah, that's gotten more complicated.
Yeah.
It used to seem much better defined to me, and now it's kind of like it almost seems like they're overworked too.
Yeah.
And ignoring it, which does not seem like the right answer. Specifically, it was a scale IO issue where depending on the configuration of their backend, it's possible to have data left around after you delete volumes. And they fixed part of it, but not, well, I don't even think they did. Did you fix part of it?
Well, they fixed it. They fixed the very obvious case where it would happen. And then we had customers saying it was still happening, and then it got reported again as a new bug because it was impacting actual users. And yeah, so basically it took like 8 or 9 months or something to fix it the first time, but it didn't actually fix it. And then it took a number of months to fix it the second time. And it wasn't really, it eventually got a CVE assigned to it, but that should have happened like months before it did. And there was a lot of issues kind of pushing the driver maintainers to be responsive enough and eager to actually fix it. And when we have fixed it the first time, the release notes that went out with the security fix were also wrong in that, well, they were almost correct by accident, but they didn't match what the code fix actually did. So then when we were fixing it the second time, it was a horribly confusing documentation thing.
Yeah.
Aside from that bug, you mentioned that some bugs crawled in with some comments. In those instances, was the person that commit asked to fix those new bugs?
We were fixing the bugs because the driver maintainer was not.
Right.
But the driver maintainer created a patch, submitted and asked it to be merged and introduced a new bug. But then that person wouldn't fix the new bug.
No, they never tried to fix the bug in the first place.
That was by design.
The security issue.
I mean,
He's
aside from
talking in
that one.
general,
Oh,
not the security one.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. So okay. Sorry, I don't understand the question.
So aside from that one,
Yeah.
you mentioned before that regarding the volume of reviews that some bugs crawled in.
Yep.
In those instances, the person that committed the change that introduced the bugs was that person asked to fix those bugs.
Yeah, that or the people who let the bug through or found the bug subsequently fixed it.
It just depends a lot on what the bug is, whether
Yeah.
you really need to worry about that part or not.
We've already done it that way. We don't go and say, hey, you broke this, go fix it.
No.
We just see the bug, we fix it, we move on. we don't do much of the blaming
No.
thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't point the finger and blame, but at least since we are we need more contributors, it would be good to share the effort to fix the bugs. And wouldn't it be a good idea to ask the person if the person has time to fix the bug? Well,
That's
I
usually
mean,
a problem.
politely.
Sometimes you can spend a week trying to track somebody down, or you could just spend half a day and just fix it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of,
Oh, okay,
and it just depends.
all right.
And about the third-party CI complaints. Can you elaborate a bit more about?
Well, we actually had a
complaints?
session on that, don't we? I think. Somewhere.
Yeah, I think we do.
Later on, much, I mean, I don't know that I'm gonna have anything to say right there that's surprising to anybody, so. I don't know that there's much to do with that at the moment.
You know, I think, oh, not lose my voice is certainly another thing. Rodrigo, are you trying to get at the idea that the people need to know they made a mistake and learn to fix it? Or what was your,
My intention is just to encourage them to contribute some more, considering the fact that they introduced the bug.
okay,
Just some encouragement, so all the effort of fixing those bugs is shared among more people. Because I know that some people just merge what they want and they just disappear and they don't want to contribute anything else.
true. And I'm not entirely sure how we avoid that, but I guess in some cases, if it's a larger bug and we need to go back to them and ask them to fix it, that's probably something we should do to make sure it's fixed correctly.
It could also help, even if you just point out, hey, this code you wrote introduced this bug. Even if they don't fix it, maybe they learn from their mistake, realizing, because if you're not on top of things, you may miss that you actually introduce a new bug.
Right,
And the next time you write code, you make it again.
right. Agreed. One thing I forgot to mention under went well, I think we did better at, sorry, I've got a tickle in my throat that won't go away. I think we were better at not nitpicking people and keeping reviews going forward with that. You know, there was a whole discussion earlier in the release about doing that or not doing that and using just, you know, like the inline editing of Garrett to help, you know, okay, we've got a misspelled word here, just go ahead and fix it instead of sending the review back. And I felt like people were receptive to that and that we were good as a team, at least those of us that were aware of that movement at doing things that way. Other comments on what we need to improve? I felt like meeting attendance was low for portions of the release. But I guess on average it was pretty stable. Other thoughts? Mr. McGinnis, anything?
One thing back to the security bug, I wonder if we should spend a little time to go over how security issues are supposed to be handled, because one of the things that went wrong with that was it was a security bug where it's limited to who can see it, but then a patch was put up for that exposed it, where usually we don't want to expose security vulnerabilities until we actually have the fix available,
Right.
or at least we're ready to handle it.
Yeah, it was still basically a private, I don't know if it was technically embargoed, but it was, definitely a private security bug. And I'm sure that's mentioned somewhere in the giant, how do you commit to OpenStack documentation, but I don't really
Yeah.
know,
I would expect most people don't know how that's supposed to work.
well, that's probably true, but it's also a very standard mechanism for pretty much any open source project. And I don't really know where we would communicate that to people.
I'm just thinking, at least in here, maybe we
Yeah.
should just go over
Oh,
how
yeah,
that's
yeah.
supposed to work. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
that at least the people
sure.
here understand.
That's probably a good idea.
Does that you mean that in that case of the security bug, you don't want people to go and submit changes on Garrett because before it lands on the code?
Well, right, there's a whole process where what you're supposed to do, and this actually is another interesting thing for the storyboard talk. What you're supposed to do is, while it's a private bug in Launchpad, is write the patch and put the patch as an attachment in the bug itself.
Right.
And folks are supposed to look at it there to do some basic review as to whether it fixes the security bug and hash out any complaints and all that in the private bug instead of in a public review. But unless you're familiar with the process or you've worked on other open source projects, it's not super, there's nothing that's going to guide somebody to necessarily know they need to do that.
Does Garrett support that? To submit the code and not be put in public?
Garrett doesn't. Years ago, Garrett did, but I don't think we ever used it. It's a Launchpad ability we have.
So the bug on Launchpad would be hidden, but the code linking to it would be public.
Well, that's
you-
the point.
So you submit the patch to the bug and everybody says, okay, this looks like it's good. And then when you're going to go public with the bug, you put it in Garrett to merge it then.
Yeah.
And then you try to push it through all the branches like that same day and land it everywhere.
Yeah, so you put a diff in the bug instead of, or instead of putting it up in Garrett and do the review that way.
And we actually historically have had a fairly small number of security bugs that we have to patch in Cinder. It's
Knock on wood.
we've never had very many of them. It's
Well,
kind of a rare thing.
we've also had a lot of security bugs handled as just bugs.
That's possible, yeah.
Because I've seen some things come through from driver maintainers where it's like, that could have been a security bug, but
Yeah,
okay.
that's true.
But
And when that happens, we need to at least try to make sure it's got a good release note or whatever. But
yeah,
this particular one, it went through the whole first round of being fixed without getting a CVE assigned to it, which I think we were relying on the OpenStack vulnerability management team to do that, and they decided not to do it
well,
for some reason.
that was weird because they were waiting for us to decide if it was a bug
Well, the
or
reason,
a security issue, and you had pretty clearly said that.
well, and the reason that they said that they were not going to assign a CVE to it was because they had somehow looked at it, concluded that it was going to be fixed in a way that was not backportable to stable branches, which was not true.
Oh,
But somebody came to that conclusion, and then somehow, based on the conclusion that they thought it wasn't backportable, they have this page that describes their classification system, and then if it's not backportable, they opt to not treat it as a security bug, which doesn't really add up in any sensible way to me as far as why this is even how this works. But it's all documented that it works that way.
that's bizarre.
It's very bizarre. So it's really bizarre here because it was backportable anyway. But even if it wasn't backportable, it doesn't make sense to not call it a security bug.
Right.
So I never really figured out what happened there. So what happened on the second bug was we were waiting for the security team to classify it but we were tracking it for Red Hat customers. So the Red Hat security team said, okay, we're going to go get a CVE ourselves. And it got pushed in that way because we didn't want to wait for an unknown amount of time after it had already been like,
So
a large number of
did you
months.
check this bot a security bug issue or not? Because I am subscribed to OpenStack vulnerability list and didn't get any notifications about Cinder issues.
Well, so when the first one was fixed, since it wasn't considered a full security bug by the vulnerability management team, they sent out an OSS in, which is a security note instead of a security advisory. And those go to some mailing list. I'm not sure which one they go to. But I don't think you're going to see anything there when the bug is filed. When it's filed, it's just up to us as a Cinder project to have the team of people on it.
Okay, I think we can probably move on from that one. Any other comments? Concerns, complaints? Is there anything that people would like to raise that we should do differently in the next release? We're perfect.
I like our trend lately of not trying to cram in too many new big features. I think we should do that the same.
No, I agree.
So
That would be under these.
that's the opposite of what you asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think everybody, the general feedback I have gotten is that people are happy that there's not a lot of feature churn. And I agree that that's good. I think it's a good to have a time of stabilization and focus on that aspect of things and getting the features we have working well. So so we won't do that differently. All right, we'll say no comments there. I will, any comments for the job I've been doing, trying to lead? I would, really? Okay, thank you. I'll just take it and move on. Yeah, well, I especially apologize. There's a lot going on at the end of the release here. So I appreciate all of you that step in and help cover things when I'm running around crazy. But I think this, I hope that this fall is going to be quieter. That's my plan. Now for an entertaining break in the show, we have our user survey results. Holy cow. Not all of this is in English. Does anybody know Chinese in the room?
What?
Oh, hey.
Got a couple in there, at least.
So one, I thought it was fun that we had, what is this? Let's do this. That's gotta look better then.
Mine's been hanging. Oh, there.
All right. Okay, can people read that?
The one that says Cinder is perfect.
So one, I was pleased that we had 102 people give feedback.
Where was this survey?
This is the usual user survey that they send out and say, please, or if you're using OpenStack, please share your feedback. And then this was in the line that says, you know, do you have any general comments on Cinder that you would like to share? Which unfortunately that doesn't show up on the camera. But so that's where the content is from. So this is the free form input box where they can share their thoughts. Yeah, Cinder is perfect. That's a good one. Cinder backup.
We did your response, John.
Yeah, don't. What's that?
We need your response now.
You know, I had to fill this out, and I can't remember if the Cinder is awesome or Cinder is perfect. Which one of those is mine? But that is my smiley face format, so that could have been me. So support recovery of boot from volume in the event of hypervisor down.
I think that's a Nova feature request. I'm not really sure.
That, yeah, it kind of sounds like,
I'm not really sure what it means, but it sounds like a Nova operation.
and that's what frustrates me about a lot of these is it's like, I know you're trying to tell us something, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
It's a
I
handful of-
remember that was some problems for the encrypted volume. Yeah, when we boot instance from encrypted volume, and then if something wrong with the instance, and then the instance restart, there was some problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So maybe that something that was ever fixed? Is there a bug for it?
I don't remember ever seeing
I'm not sure.
reporting as a bug,
Okay.
because I spent a while hacking through encryption stuff, and I don't recall that one.
There's some problem about the patch in the lower side when the instance got done.
Okay. I think a lot of these multi-mount, multi-attach comments are probably aimed at Seth.
Yeah, there's a handful about multi-attention here.
Yeah.
The number 12 is in Korean. It's cut up at the end. If you like copy it, I can read the whole thing. It's talking about SEP and that they want the volume pool. I think they're saying the volume pool. They want the data back a little faster from the sender volume or sender backup from the SEP pool. I think that's what it's saying. On the number 12. Yeah.
So what do they want? Set on the backups?
So I think it's saying they're using Ceph as a backup, and then they want the sender backup to get the data from. Or they want the sender backup to be able to get the data faster.
To
Oh,
get the data faster.
okay. Do they say if they are using Ceph as well for
Yes.
volume?
Yeah.
So they're using it for both?
Let's see. It's a sender backup. Sorry, now it's the first part. So they're using Ceph as storage in the background, and then they're using sender backup, and the sender backup volume pool they would like that faster.
Oh, maybe what they want is to request directly to the backend
Yeah, it says,
to copy the backup.
says it has to copy from sender backup.
Yeah.
Sender backup from volume pools to backup pools.
Yeah, because what we do is a diff, and maybe potentially we could add an optimization there that just does the,
So that's just saying that they're like a little faster. That's what it is. That's all.
okay, yeah, thanks.
Cross pool.
But then we would have to rework the whole single back mechanism. Because right now it works even for different pools, different clusters. It just works because we do a diff, we create a snapshot, but if we add the option to just work itself, I would have to think if I have a way around that. Because I also have to keep looking at the other request that came in, which is to be able to do full backups on Ceph. You do one full, two incremental, and request a full again, which currently we cannot do. Okay. I'll add it to my list.
And on the request for multi-attach with Ceph, you guys are working on that, but
Yeah, I think that's a Stein targeted thing, if I remember correctly.
okay,
John Bernard is working on it right now.
okay.
For the other, for the multi-attach, it doesn't work on claims. But there is some Nova issue that's blocking
You mean that doesn't work with Ceph or doesn't work
for any backend.
for any backend? I don't
Yeah,
know. We
that's
haven't
the-
tried to use
I
it.
mean, Nova said it did, but.
No, we have gate jobs that do multi-attach.
I mean, there was some Red Hat bug that was explained that there was a Nova issue. I'll get with you offline.
Maybe the bug was about Ceph, because in Ceph what we have is that you can not enable journaling and at the same time do multi-attach. So maybe the bug was around Ceph specific. Although
I have to find out.
if you find the bug, please
Yeah, let you.
let me know. Yeah, I'll have a look.
Let's see, what other feedback did we have here? Active mode, we're working on that. Ceph backend multi-attach, somebody who sneezed twice. Because that doesn't look like a language I'm aware of. Auto AZ selection when you have more than one backend of the same type based upon capacity performance data.
I'm not sure that auto AZ selection is a concept that makes any sense.
I don't know what that means.
The whole point of AZs is that like you know what kind of AZ and fault domain and everything you're in.
Ability to split more than one volume creations for users across multiple AZs. Be able to resize boot from volume root disks.
Did we not do that already?
For
I think with the extend attached stuff,
Yeah, I think we just did that.
yeah.
So it sounds like the AZ requests here are maybe not sensible, and we're working on the root disk,
Well, AZ
or we
ones-
have the root disk support.
The AZ ones would need a lot more background info to really know what they're doing.
Automatic backup, I've heard that from a few people, and I think in the past, haven't we said, write your own scripting to do it?
Yeah, I mean, the assumption would always be that if you wanted, has always been that if you wanted to orchestrate and schedule backups, then you should do it with some tool outside of Cinder that calls Cinder backups. I mean, it's certainly something we could do, but I imagine there's probably way more useful things we could do in backup than that.
I wrote
For
down.
automatic backups, you can use something like Mistral.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of ways you could probably do it.
I think I wrote 3 years ago like a Python script that was meant to do this. You could define how many backups you wanted to keep and when to do the backup. It would just do the backups for all the volumes.
I
Nice.
think that was a feature in Freezer as well when it was using the Cinder backup system. It had a whole scheduling mechanism and all that.
So having other services doing the backup
Okay.
doesn't make much sense to add a scheduling, I think, in Cinder.
Okay.
Maybe after we get all the other backup stuff to work really well, we can worry about that. But
better snapshot support. I mean, that's really back-end dependent, right?
Well, no, what they're saying is they want their snapshots to be volume clones.
Oh,
Is what they're actually saying.
so shouldn't they clone their volume sign instead of snapshot?
That's what we've always said, because one of the whole definitions of a Cinder snapshot is that it's dependent on volume. That's one of like the fundamental properties of them in Cinder. So I don't know why we would try to change that unless there's some like actual reason that that's a great idea.
Okay.
Why can't we remove the snapshot? If you have cloned,
Oh, this is creating a new volume from a
I
snapshot.
think that's reasonable.
Oh, actually, that is reasonable.
But
And we actually,
I thought we added that recently.
I don't know.
well, that's going to be a driver dependent thing. I mean,
Okay.
okay, I was reading this wrong. So if there is a driver where when you clone a volume from a snapshot and then you can't delete the snapshots, then that's a bug in the driver as far as what it's supposed to do with Cinder.
No. Say that again.
If you clone a new volume from a snapshot
Okay.
and it makes it so that you can't delete that snapshot because there's a new volume, then that's a driver bug, because they're supposed to be not necessarily independent when it's created, but at least able to be made independent when they need to be.
But the snapshot may not be able to be, oh wait, no, it's the other way around. You can't
Yes.
delete the volume when there's a snapshot.
Yeah, see, I read it backwards too.
Okay.
What they're talking about is something that's supposed to already happen. It'd be great if they told us what driver they were using.
Yeah.
But our clone calls don't take a snapshot as a source, do they? They volume.
No, our create volume can use a snapshot as a
Yeah,
source.
but that's creating volume, that's not cloning volume.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's probably what it means, create volume, because cloning, in the end, it's also create volume, with the volume as a source.
Well, this
With
doesn't
some
use the word
semantic
clone.
difference. So maybe we just need a flag on that or something that.
Well, no, I mean, the driver contract that we have says if you create a volume,
From Snapchat.
it can't be locking snapshots on an unrelated volume.
I would bet that at least 50% of our drivers are not doing it that way then.
Okay. Well,
Create
maybe
from
we should-
snapshot in the other storage management applications I've had that I've used have not implied cloning from that snapshot.
Well, the Cinder model is that separate volumes are supposed to be independently deletable or, independently
True.
existing for a bunch of different operations.
And I think we just.
Plus
don't make
1,000
that
to what
clear.
Eric just said. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
What? I'm curious who's on.
This is a really easy thing to find out with third-party CI, by the way.
John!
Hey!
You snuck in without me noticing. Welcome. I thought that was your voice, but I'm like, whoa.
I'm just listening in the background.
Okay. Cool. Well, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. We miss
Hey.
you.
All we
It's
need
too
for
bad you're
this,
so far away.
You're so far away.
all we
I
need,
couldn't get a plane ticket.
Horse tickets.
so do we not have a Tempest test that'll create from snapshot and then delete the original volume? I thought that maybe already existed.
I don't think so, because I know, I can say for sure at least one driver creating a volume from snapshot is not the same semantic as cloning. With the way it's currently implemented. So if we had a Tempest test that did that, we would know, we'd be seeing failures there.
Well, maybe.
So there was a couple of drivers way back that had issues with this whole thing and they wanted them tied specifically just for their drivers. So I think to Eric's point, if there's not a Tempest test, write one, and they'll start failing and we'll be done.
Turn it on for your CI. It's easy.
Well, there is something nice with having them tied together. I know there's some storage that is much more efficient and can create that volume in milliseconds versus if they have to actually clone and
Well, you
make it an
can-
independent thing, that would make it a much longer running operation.
Well, and some drivers do that way, but then when you do the delete operation, it actually breaks the dependency at that point.
I don't think they're going to.
So
I know not every-
somebody at one point, what they did because of this, they had this limitation in their driver was they just went ahead and responded okay to the delete request, but they actually left the volume on the system and have their own ref counter
Wasn't Ceph doing that?
in the driver.
Well, I don't think the Ceph driver does that. I mean, Ceph kind of does that in the Ceph backend, but not in the Cinder driver layer.
Yeah, I wasn't saying the Ceph driver.
Well, that
I
was Sean was.
recall a driver did that.
I think there is a test for that. I think I created a test that you create a few snapshots and then you start deleting a lot of the snapshots in the middle. Just don't remember if we create a volume from that. That's part of the operation.
What does this
I remember-
actually do?
The test that delete snapshots is in between. I remember that there was a bug on the NFS driver that when you create some snapshots, you weren't able to delete the snapshots in the middle. You just could delete only the last snapshots. You need to find the test series.
It's
That's a good
slightly
one.
different, but-
Sorry?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one, but I think that's slightly different than the issue here.
You wanna test after volume creation, right? If you can delete the snapshots.
Well, you want to create a volume, create a snapshot, create a volume from that snapshot, and then delete the original volume and snapshot and make sure they go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at that.
There was this scenario for another, but there's no tempest.
Anyway, let's move on.
Move on? Okay. So it sounds like we should maybe look into that functionality a bit more. All right. We don't have time to go through all of this. Lots of Cinder backup requests. Some people saying they're happy.
Yeah, I have a thought on automatic backups. Can we somehow add a parameter for recovery endpoint objectives so that the people who want automatic backup can get the feature for them?
No.
The what? So that requires a whole lot of infrastructure that we don't have.
Okay, so is there a voice disruption?
No, we heard you. The answer is it requires a lot of infrastructure that we don't have in Cinder.
It's already being done by Freezer, Carver, personalized scripts.
Right,
Yeah.
more generally, when you have APIs to do individual operations in a component, why wouldn't somebody work on an external project that schedules and calendars and does automatic management and orchestration of them?
Yeah.
But it seems to me a poor design to try to build that in each particular project rather than, I work on Manila and used to work on Cinder. Somebody says they want to do automatic snapshots on schedule. You could do that in both components and you could drive it from outside by using the components, the APIs in the components. I'm just picking one because we don't have backups in Manila at the moment, so that's why I changed the example. But it's there's no reason. It seems to me these kind of workflows are it's not the job of the individual component to drive these workflows. Right?
Yeah. So this is better supported by external entities.
External
using our
entities that are
EDAs.
time-based or event-based and orchestrate calls into the individual component like Cinder.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Convenient integration in Horizon. I find this one interesting. Do you know what they mean?
Configuration.
Configuration.
It's a convenient configuration.
Ivan wakes up again. Horizon plus Cinder.
Horizon PTL, fix it.
What is
I would assume that that is referring to
what does it mean?
being able to set up Cinder via Horizon and
What?
whatever, as
No.
opposed to just cinder.conf. It's probably what that
Or
means.
just pull in how it's configured. Because aren't there some tweaks you have to do to Horizon depending on how you set up Cinder to whether to show certain things or not? It's been a long time since I've done
By
it.
default, we enable all Cinder features.
Yeah.
So what do you do with consistency groups?
Oh, we disabled it, okay.
No, I'm
Maybe
just
it's
thinking of
related to
things that might
microversions?
depend on the back end or
I
something like
think
that.
it's just about configuring Cinder.
If we move to generic groups,
Right.
Oh,
So the difference between a consistency group and a generic group is not exposed in Horizon.
So I actually was,
for the latest version, we got generic group support, and if you
I mean, I phrased that wrong, but between a generic group
Yeah.
that has consistent rights, for
Yeah,
example,
I
and one
understand.
that's just doing.
But I remember we can still enable consistency group if we need to be decide to keep it for one release more. Disable by default.
How are macro versions handled in Horizon Cinder? Like, is it always updated to the latest macro version, or is it kept at us?
No, we use this specific macro version for each API request which requires macro version.
okay. So for a certain function, if it needs a certain microversion, you specify it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably the safest thing to do.
Yeah, we do it for all projects
Okay.
which requires macro version.
Yeah. Well, that's the model of microversions. I mean, Horizon is the application there, and it's going to set whatever it expects to operate with.
But it's always good to hear that it's doing it right.
Setting ephemeral disk sizes and the flavor. Don't know about that. This one bothers me. Get the CLI help to match available commands.
My guess is that that's confusion about setting the microversion environment variables.
Okay.
Because the problem is on a lot of deployments by default, you run Cinder help and then you don't see all the newer things until you opt into a newer version.
Okay.
And I think others had picked the opposite approach where they show everything.
Okay.
So I don't know, I haven't looked at everyone, but I don't know if we're the only ones that hide stuff unless you say you want the higher microversion, or
Yeah, I'm not sure.
we talked about it at one point back when Scott D'Angelo was still here, and
The multi-versions are?
I think we had decided we were going to change that behavior to show the full help regardless of microversion.
And then just tag them and say only in
Yeah,
version.
but nothing was ever done on that.
It's a pretty big usability problem for new people because they don't see like half of our functionality and they don't
It
know how to
messes
get
me
to
up
it.
sometimes.
Yeah, I've run into that too.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
That's maybe something I can try to look at because it's always confused me too. And I would like to fix it. I know a lot of the new commands that have come into place with microversions have a requires microversion blah tag in the help text. So it may just, it may not be that big a change to make that happen. Multi-attach, 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 multi-attach.
Multi-access.
Multi-access. They want to get in on both sides of their back end. NA, no. Nope, none. No comment. Cinder is nothing at all. Cinder is awesome. I like that one. Proper RBAC.
I think we have proper RBAC.
This is what they mean by proper.
I wonder if that's
Because I
the
would
more,
go with Eric.
wonder if that's the more general OpenStack issue of having global admin versus just project admin.
I don't know.
What's quality assurance mean?
We should have more of that.
Isn't that what you keep complaining about?
It means that whenever we do a release, the PTL needs to go, I'm Jay and I assure that the quality is there.
Jay, I approve this release.
Yeah.
But you're the release manager. I just proposed it and you're like, yeah, you can release. It's okay. Support for Kubernetes read-only many access.
This is just read-only multi-attached.
Okay.
Which I think is something that we're supposed to be doing anyway.
Okay. Very nice project. We're very nice. And then somebody wants Chinese and QoS.
Any of the Chinese speakers, are there any things to call out of those pieces?
Anything exciting in there, Lisa?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
like-
it means a lot of Chinese users to use OpenStack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, I'm trying to translate those of, but I don't know why, because I can see the translated English on my screen, but it was not there.
You get an English translation and we
Yeah.
That's
He's
backwards.
editing this.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's not appearing there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not appearing in
Is that
the.
the same?
Yeah, and I
Well,
don't
that's
see it
because
either.
if you do the view as sheet thing, everybody gets their own copy.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody got to,
It's not a shared.
It's not an Etherpad.
Oh,
you have to share that one. It's another.
anything interesting out of those that you've translated so far?
Backup.
Backup in the
Yeah,
Back-
backup.
volume trash can.
I don't know what it is.
that was actually a feature that we
Yeah.
discussed.
Yeah.
Is that like
the volume and
That was
then
the
it's volume?
it's
Yeah.
an defer delete.
Defer delete.
Volume backup is the most, I remember.
Add volume backup support.
Yeah, and the time-based backup
Okay, so
and auto backup.
So everybody wants scheduled backups for some reason.
Yes.
It seems like we need to figure, there's some project that does that. Maybe we just need to point to it in our documentation.
oh, that's a good
Well,
idea.
Carver did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we just put
We even made some tweaks for them, I think, so that they could use the Cinder APIs and not have to do anything special.
Oh, is that new
It was smog.
smog?
Yeah.
And then they were concerned about getting sued.
I think Freezer can do it too because they have some scheduling engine and they also support send your backup as one of their optional backends or something.
Yeah.
How do you spell Carver?
For all I know, people are
K-A-R.
using Mistral or something like that.
You don't use that word all the time.
Also, there is a guy mentioned about the shear volumes, which I mentioned before.
About what?
Shear volumes.
Okay.
shared between different tenants?
We have shared
guess so.
volumes now, but it's not multi-attached.
No, it's between different.
Oh,
tenants.
between tenants.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, didn't we do public?
This question is raised each year, and every time we decide to propose using claims for this.
I think we need more than a two-word request.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Should we find a way to, everything we are commenting here, to be able to make it public, so whoever wrote a survey can actually go back and see what our responses are? Because this seems like a one-way.
How, I mean, where are we gonna send it to where they actually?
No, you don't have to send it, but
If
if the survey says,
survey says.
when they are doing it, they can, if there's a text saying, you will be able to see in whatever link in a month, in 2 months, whatever, some feedback from the team. I think that could be useful.
I think
agree.
that part of that stuff, for instance, are feature requests. So that is not very simple to answer because we will need people engaged to work on that. So maybe I think we could complement that with some encouragement for the people to reach us on RC and get engaged. maybe propose a spec, have a plan to implement some of those requests. It's very easy to just list things on.
Yeah, but imagine someone asking for a scheduled backup, and we just say, go check this project.
Oh yeah, for those cases, yes.
For that person who has written feedback,
Yes.
they get actually something in return.
Yep.
Like, I try to help the project in this way, and you tell me, hey, we're not going to do it because it's already done here.
Mhm.
I don't know.
But at least we show that we got their feedback, we've
And-
read it,
yes.
we're responding.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, for them, this is, I don't know,
They're
the trash can.
screaming into a trash can.
Maybe a wiki page or mailing list. Email.
We should probably get in contact with.
Let Ashley, or I can't remember if I got this from Kendall Waters or Ashley.
I don't think they have the information that we can actually get back to the people that left that comment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they keep it anonymous enough that they don't.
Okay. But if, let me engage her and find out, would there be a way that, you know, we can attempt to address these and show that we actually read them, because I like that idea. And even if we can't get to everyone, if we can answer, you know, 30 of them by answering 2 or 3 of them, you know, because there's a lot of repeats in there.
Yeah. I'd
That-
say if we can't respond directly, probably would be good. Work up a response where we can categorize these into, you know, less than a dozen, hopefully different things that people have said and what our response is.
Yeah. And I'm supposed to be getting a translated version eventually here that'll have the Chinese and stuff translated.
Got it
So-
right on Tommy's laptop.
Okay. Volume trash can. I'm just picturing, you know, using Horizon. You've got the little trash can. Okay. So I'm going to take an action here.
I just translated everything in the Google Translate.
Okay. That worked?
I put it on the channel.
Okay. Cool. Did you say cloudy management?
That's one of the translators.
Yeah, it's bad.
Enhanced storage.
Repair, modify, strengthen QoS. I'm not totally surprised by that one. Disaster recovery backup, volume sharing, recycle bin function. That's not as fun as trash can function.
Recycle doesn't seem like they are really one we discuss
Enhanced
about,
storage.
you know, it seems like they are one we discuss. But
No.
No.
No. All right, good. Well, that's good discussion, and I like these ideas we have here coming out of it to be more intentional about responding. I think that's good. So we'll work on that. The last item is of kind of the State of the Union discussion, came out of the Manila team's discussions. What would people think about taking 2 or 3 bugs a week and throwing them into our meeting, given that we've had less like big feature discussions and fighting over that kind of stuff, and just going through the bugs that are sitting in the backlog and looking at it and saying, do we need to do something with this?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do some regular triage. I try to do some extent of this myself.
I
but
thought
it's-
you were.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's not like scheduled, but some amount of time every week I actually do this.
Okay.
Because it's really useful to me anyway. So I don't know if it really fits well into the IRC meeting or not, but it would make sense to try some kind of organized effort to just look at a handful of them.
I think it was good, it's worked well to educate people, people that aren't involved in the bug triage, are not involved in the bug triage, get exposed to it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe some of them start helping with it, or they understand how we do it.
Well, it also helps us have a good view of, real world feedback kind of stuff, which can be good too.
So we kind of have a standing item on the agenda for it, and then if there's something really pressing, we don't have to do it that week.
And it would replace my ping Gorka time in the meetings. Unless something comes up that I have to ping you about this release. Okay.
So, I mean, would we try to just come up with some Launchpad query to see what bugs have been filed in the last week? Or?
Is there even a way?
There is
I
not.
Querying Launchpad. I
But
would try to get that, and
in Storyboard, there is.
And every other bug tracker.
He smiles.
But
I have been sent on a mission to sell Storyboard, and by God, I'm going to sell Storyboard to you guys.
I actually mostly do bug triage for Cinder out of my mailbox because it's just the easiest way for me to do it.
Yeah, sometimes Launchpad, the logs get all scrambled. So I go to the mail and they are nicely there.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, we don't typically have a huge volume of bugs on a weekly basis. So yeah, it seems like it'd be useful to try to do this.
And I think it wouldn't necessarily, I think it would be good that we get better about looking at what came in the last week to stop growing our backlog. Because I'll be honest, I have not been keeping up on that. But also picking out some of the ones that have been around forever and figuring out, can we close these?
when I would spend some time going through there, I try to get the oldest ones first and work up, because we've had ones that are sitting out there that are still issues unaddressed.
Yeah.
And they've been there a very long time.
The other thing we're doing is, it's not the PTL's responsibility to do the list.
Yeah.
So we delegated, we have a bug czar.
Yeah.
It's a guy who works on QE. Bug czar is his love and passion. I'm sure he wants to get away from him, but he pulls the list of what he thinks is interesting or old important issues. Sometimes we just look at things that we think we can just get rid of real quick.
We can respond to the QA comment with this.
This is kind of the most obvious.
Is there anybody who's interested in taking on this role?
I can help with it.
Okay. Rajat?
Yes.
Okay. Good. That's a good way to get you spun up and involved here. So I would say the action that comes from this then is to so do we want to try doing it in our weekly meeting?
Yeah, we can try to. One other thing I'll throw in there as part of the whole bug triage area is that one of the really useful things that we've actually as a project been getting better at is looking at them and proactively identifying what we need to backport to stable branches.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably a pretty useful output of this exercise too, is to do it with that in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, we just trying to kind of follow the neutron model on this, where the if it's a genuine bug, and it's safe to backport, and you can do a clean cherry pick, then it's legit to do it, you know. It's,
We've gotten pretty good about doing that for Cinder, but we just don't do it in any really particularly
yeah.
organized way that's guaranteed to look at all of them or whatever.
I mean, part of it's just kind of setting an expectation that when someone does a commit for a genuine bug fix to master, that they will follow up with, you know, cherry picks, stables.
Okay, good. I like that plan. I think it also fits well with where we're at right now as a project. You know, just in the fact that things are a little more stable and we're more customer focused, I think, than we previously were. And let's start looking at their bugs and addressing those. All right. So that wraps up our retrospective survey results and bug triage, and we're right on time, which is good. Our 10:30 item was the placement service discussion, which I don't really think we need at the moment. Who all was in the placement service discussion yesterday? Okay, not everybody. So, I propose I do a quick overview of what came out of that, and then we take like a 15-minute break and then talk about storyboard. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Oh, and then we can skip the 11:15 break and just work through until lunch. That works. Awesome. Okay, so we met with Jay Pipes and Chris Dent and Dan yesterday, Dan Smith, for a little over an hour. I recorded that session if you're interested in going back and listening to it. And I will add a link here on the page to the Etherpad that we took some notes on. So the session turned into basically the Nova team trying to figure out how we would use the placement service, trying to understand how our scheduler currently works, and things like that. And as we progressed through the discussion, they discovered that we already have richer scheduling functionality to handle thin provisioning and that sort of thing and what we already have in place. So as we talked about it, it was kind of, don't come back, cough. We determined that moving to using placement adds a service in, and that perhaps it's not complexity that we really need, and that we can probably take the lessons that they've learned about having atomic scheduling across multiple schedulers and pull that technology into our scheduler.
I think it was not only about not adding the complexity of another service, but the fact that it could only solve half of our problem, and we would still need to solve the other half, which was of the same kind, getting the schedulers out of sync. So if we are already doing it for part of the code, we might as well do it for everything. So it didn't solve our full problem, so let's just solve it. And they agreed to have a meeting to pass that knowledge on how they fix it and everything.
And so you're gonna follow up on Friday?
Yeah, I think so.
Gorka signed up.
Gorka signed up for that one after I pointed the camera at him. But I feel much better about that decision, that we're not pulling in another service that we don't necessarily need, but that we're getting an opportunity to fix problems that we need fixed. So,
And we also realize that probably in the future, we will need to provide some information to their placement service so they can make better decisions. For example, when they want to create an instance using a volume that it's close to where the instance is going to be running. So it's something in the long run, but it's something that we will eventually want to do.
Right,
Provide
and that's a reframing of the issue from the way, at least I heard it initially. I heard it initially as, are we going to work and help out with the placement service and be good citizens and use the reuse code and stuff, or not? And it's really more sophisticated than that, is that we can reuse the database stuff without actually having their scheduler stuff. And we can be good citizens and publish the stuff to them at some point when they're ready for it. Anyway.
That's a good summary.
yeah.
Get this point because we can use both placement and scheduling. So placement to be provided as a general information, whereas place performance is available and scheduler will do better for decision if this storage is good enough for this volume.
Yeah, but the problem we had was that placement doesn't know about, does only accounts for provision
Yes.
space, not allocated, so.
Yes, that's the issue. I agree.
So it was not good for us.
And simplification is an issue and should be solved.
Okay, other questions, comments, concerns on that? Nope, okay. Let's take a break then until, let's see, it's 10:40.
It's already 10:40.
Do
10:50.
till 10:50? Let's just make it 11.
Let's say 10:50 and we'll start at 11.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
All right, 10:50, we'll start at 11. Be back here at 10:50.
Realistic.
All right, thanks everybody for the good discussion, and we'll talk in a little bit.